Well, thanks for that introduction, Emily, and welcome everyone again to today's webinar. We're delighted you were able to join us today. Hydroponics is one of our favorite topics to talk about here at Realityworks, and we have some great information to share with you today. We are going to start things off by just quickly reviewing who Realityworks is, what our company does. Then we'll turn things over to our education programs manager, Jamie McIntosh, who is going to chat a little bit about what hydroponics is and the different types of hydroponics growing methods available to you. And he'll also introduce the three systems that we offer here at Realityworks to help teachers grow hydroponically in their classrooms. Then we're going to turn things over to our subject matter experts for a fun little discussion about using hydroponics in schools. You'll hear from North Carolina agriculture teacher Brenda Collins, who will share about some of the successes that she's experienced in her own classroom this past year. Then you'll hear from Realityworks marketers Alan Jacobson and our webinar moderator today, Emily Winnesdorfer, both of whom took our own systems home with them to use recently to really just get that experience that our own customers get when they're trying to grow hydroponically for the first time. Alan used one of our systems and Emily used a different one, both for the first time. And we asked them some of the tips and tricks that they've learned to be successful, and they're going to share those with you today. Then we'll conclude by sharing some really great teaching tips from Jamie and from Brenda as well. And we'll wrap things up with some free resources about using hydroponics. So let's get started. First of all, who is Realityworks? Well, we are an experiential learning company based in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and we actually got our start about 20 years ago with the invention of the Real Care Baby Infant Simulator, which is on your screen in that upper left corner, invented by former NASA engineer Rick Germain in response to a show he was watching about students using eggs and flour sacks to simulate parenting. He thought we could do better with a robot baby, so lo and behold, Real Care Baby was born. Fast forward about 20 years, and we now offer all sorts of fun hands-on learning aids for career and technical education, a few of which are pictured on your screen now. You can look to us not only for Real Care Baby, of course, but a bovine breeder artificial insemination simulator, a shaken baby simulator, welding simulators, health science training tools, and of course, hydroponics. We strive to wrap all of our hands-on learning aids with supporting materials for teachers. We offer lesson plans, student activities, assessments, presentation slides, and we really pride ourselves on offering stellar product support. You can always give us a call if you're using one of our tools and you have a question or a concern. In fact, I believe Brenda's going to reference some of her experiences with our support team as well today. But we offer all sorts of learning aids for a variety of career and technical education programs to help students learn job skills and life skills that they can use to succeed. All right, well, we will turn things over to Jamie McIntosh. He's going to talk about what hydroponics is and why use it in schools.
So one of the questions that really comes up is why hydroponics? Why is this something that we should do? And what is it? So let's start with the what. What is hydroponics? Is basically what hydroponics is growing different plants or produce in water, hydro, instead of in soil. And so, one of the questions is why would you do that? What would the benefit be from coming to that? And so talking through this a little bit, one of the things that is it's a great learning opportunity within schools, and being able to share this with your students and learn about the different opportunities that are there. So there's a lot of career exploration of hydroponics and what types of growing you can do, and then what kind of careers that might lead to. Another big one here is STEM, allowing students to get different types of knowledge and learning from different, there's scientific of how it grows to technology that using, engineering of how hydroponics works, and then the math. There's a lot of different math aspects of the grow season and how much you're growing and the nutrient measurements in it. So there's a lot of help in that world too. Another big thing that we're hearing more and more in this world, in our world, is sustainability. How do we sustain when we have things like floods and droughts and climate change and things of that nature? How do we bring sustainable growth and growing opportunities to our plants and what we're going to eat? And so working through and using hydroponics can help in that world. Again, another piece of the puzzle is the farm to table world. It's something where people want to know what they're growing and how they're growing, and the nutrients that comes out of this, and how it can help us and be helpful to our health. All of these bring about different learning engagements. And so really, talking about hydroponics, people will, question what is it, and how does it work, and then what are the different types of hydroponic systems as well. So really, there are, I would say, four types of hydroponic system. We have six listed here, as two of them kind of are offshoots of hydroponics, but are still in that world. We're really going to focus and see on four of them, which is our deep water culture, ebb and flow, drip system, and the NTF system here. And so as we go through this, we're going to start with our deep water culture. And again, like I said, what is hydroponics? Hydroponics is really that ability to grow plants or produce with water instead of soil. And so you see with our deep water culture, it's like if you were going to put your plant into the soil, but in this case, it's into water. And the water has nutrients, it has oxygen being pumped in, and allowing that plant to really grow and its roots to grow by using water versus soil. The deep water culture allows those plants to grow deep into the basin there, or the tank that it's in, and really to grow based off getting that nutrients from the water below, and also from the nutrients that you add to that water. Another great type is the ebb and flow, or the flood and drain system. And the ebb and flow system here really allows you to, you bring water up. It has nutrients in it by way of a water pump. It then goes and it floods through, or it flows by, and it goes by the plant root system, and then it drains back down into the water below. As you need, you then can continue to cycle that, and then you add nutrients as the plants kind of grab that nutrients as it's flowing by. Another option is our drip system here. And the drip system is the idea that, basically you kind of, instead of having, you have water below, but you have water coming and nutrients coming from above, and it drips down onto the plant rather than coming in the roots soaking up. It's coming down from the top, dripping onto the plant, and then the roots will grab that nutrients and the water needed before it goes and drains down into the tank below. And then we also have a nitrate film technique, which is really kind of bringing some of the other ones that we've talked about, and we show the drip system next to it here, kind of bringing those into where what's really happening is that it's this flow downward, all right, and kind of moving down the ramp and draining into the bath. Well, the nutrients is up top. As it drains and as it goes, the plants grab that nutrients, and then kind of the unnutrient system water that's been kind of, the nutrients have been taken out from the plants, goes back down, and then you would add more nutrients to the lower system there. So the NTF system is another option. Now, those are kind of our four main one. Two others that are also included, and other ways to grow is aeroponics. And the best way I can think of that is, it's kind of how a lot of times grocery stores, they will mist their produce in a grocery store. Aeroponics kind of has that same idea, is using less water sometimes, you're able to mist the roots or the top of the plant. That plant then gains that nutrients as needed. As the nutrients is taken up by the plant, you then can mist again, and do that every so often, giving the water, or the plant, the needed water and nutrients as needed, trying to then again be sustainable in that way. Another option is aquaponics. This then again brings hydroponics, and it correlates it with fish. So that's where you get the aquaponics here. In this case, the fish are the nutrient solution, or helping to create the nutrient solution for the plants. Fish have their waste. The waste has nutrients in it that the plant will use. So the plants will suck up that nutrients from the waste of the fish, allowing the fish to stay alive in swimming below or in the tank, and then the plant gets the nutrients from it, helping the plant to survive, and then the water is cleaned, helping the fish to survive. Again, in this case, you're then getting two different sources in that world for doing this. So if you're interested in getting started with this, we have a lot of different opportunities for you through Realityworks. We have different hydroponic systems. They all help you to get started, giving you what you need, how to get growing, and then charts on as you're doing it. What is those needs that you have and how to best go about trying to grow different types of plants. Our systems include our plant lab educational system. This is kind of our system where it has three different shelves, and each shelf has its own water basin or tank. So you can put different amounts of nutrients and different types of plants on each shelf, allowing you to grow different things in every single shelf, and allowing you to have more options in that world. Now, we also have a plant producer because a lot of times, especially in schools, you may want to produce a lot of one thing. And so in this case, you have a tank at the bottom. That tank is then running the nutrients to all three levels and allows you to grow, again, different things, or you can grow a lot of the same thing. Now, in this case, this also has ability to change the timers, change the lights, the time of lights are on, time of the fans are on, and checking different variables for you in the plant producer. And lastly, we have our mini hydroponic system. There's 5 different mini hydroponic systems here that allow you to grow in your classroom, have students grow their own different produce or plants. And in this case, it gives different types of growing options. So we have the ebb and flow, we have the deep water culture, and also microgreens can be grown in these 3 systems. So really, in this case, it allows you to be able to grow different types of produce based on what your needs are. So we have 3 different options for you based on what you're looking for and what you want your students to be able to grow. All of this then includes different types of curriculum, all focusing on hydroponics. So we include PowerPoint slides, activities, different types of assessments, helping you get started working on and all the different types of guides you need to be successful in growing hydroponics. So all of this is there for you as you need it to grow successfully.
Awesome. That was Realityworks Education Programs Manager, Jamie McIntosh. He is a former teacher and has traveled the country talking to educators just like you about what they could use in their classrooms to grow hydroponically. That was just a great introduction to our system. So thank you for that, Jamie. Next, we will turn things over to Brenda Collins. Brenda is an agricultural education teacher in North Carolina, and she was kind enough to help us out with today's presentation. She acquired her first hydroponic systems just this past fall semester and was really excited to share some of the things that she's learned from her experience. Now, Brenda was not able to join us live today due to her teaching schedule, but she shared some great videos with us. So let's take a peek at the first one and hear a little more about Brenda's experience with hydroponics.
Hi, my name is Brenda Collins. I'm a 6th through 8th grade agriculture teacher here in Trinity, North Carolina. I teach at Wheatmore Middle School, and I have been here since 2010, teaching mainly 7th and 8th graders, but adding 6th grade this year. And I teach a variety of things from natural resources to agricultural foods to plant and animal science. And I wanted to introduce you to one of the favorite things that I've had going on this year, which is this Realityworks hydroponics unit. And I wanted to just share with you some of the things that I really liked about it, some of the things that I might have learned about it, and some of the ways that I make it work in my classroom. One of the things I wanted to speak to as to why I chose to use this hydroponics unit, I don't have a lot of room here, and we used to be a a bigger school, and so we had a lot of mobile units behind my classroom here. Not any room for putting in a garden bed, not any room for building a greenhouse, not to mention the expense of that for a middle school program. So we've since removed the mobile units, and now we have raised beds outside. But this has just really helped because this grows year round, and I've had stuff growing in here since I got this in September. The lettuce grows extremely quickly. And in fact, I have it on low right now, and that lettuce is probably just a few weeks old. And I was put it on low trying to keep it from growing too fast. And obviously you can see it's more than ready for harvest at this point. I like using this with kids because they get a chance to see all stages of the aspect of growing things here in an alternative setting. And one of the things that we often talk about in our classroom is the fact that we have to feed 10 billion people in a few years, and how are we going to do that? And this is going to be one piece of that puzzle. I also allow them to do things like check the pH. We use just a simple pH meter like this, which they can just stick down in here or down into the water capacity, the water tank down here, and check the pH. So they're getting some hands-on activities in starting the seeds and putting them into the grow unit, and then also obviously eating them, which is really what they, I think, enjoy the best, is the eating part. If you're wondering how things will grow, I want to show you the root system to the tomatoes. I've actually had to prune it because they had gotten so thick and so large. And you can see that those got some nice strong roots, and the tomatoes are doing really, really well. I'm not sure if I would always do tomatoes again, but you know, it was an experiment, something I wanted to try. I like to try some different herbs. I've done cilantro, I've done different types of basils, and obviously different types of lettuce. The unit's really easy to use. It's got this handy little display. It tells me the temperature, it tells me the tank, it tells me the time, and it tells me the growth cycle that I have on. Any problem or issue that I've had, Realityworks has been really, really responsive to answering my questions, helping me with some brainstorming, replacing some things that were not working right. And the other middle school, my middle school split off into two from last year, also got a unit, and I was able to help that teacher get their unit up and running too with minimal cost. I have ordered fertilizer off of Amazon and seed off of Amazon, and obviously some seed that I have ordered through specialty places like the Baker heirloom seed, just to get some variety for these kids. A lot of my students, in fact, most of my students, do not have any gardening experience. They do not grow. They do not live on farms. We are more of a bedroom community of Greensboro, High Point area. And so this is a chance for some of them to physically grow something and consume something that they've grown throughout the school year. And they watch it attentively. It hasn't lost its interest at all.
Awesome. That was great, Brenda. Thank you so much. Next, we will turn things over to Emily Winnestorfer. Not only is she today's webinar moderator, but she is on the marketing team here at Realityworks as well. And she and our other marketing coworker, Alan, actually took our hydroponic systems home with them just this past year to experience again what first-time teachers might experience when they're trying to grow hydroponically in their classroom. So we asked both Emily and Alan a series of questions following their experiences, following their first harvest, to really get a better understanding of what they did to keep their plants happy, how their first harvest went, how they got started. And so now we're going to share their feedback with you. We'll hear from Emily first.
How did you get started? When we started growing hydroponically, it was very new to me. I was used to growing in soil. It was a little bit intimidating. And the only thing that we had were our units and the quick start guide. The quick start guide also was super helpful because not only did it tell me what we needed, it also told me step by step how to grow hydroponically which made it a lot less intimidating. So if you are a teacher that has never done this before, we have provided you with a very detailed quick start guide, as well as resources on our webinar to get you started growing hydroponically, as well as help you throughout the whole growing process. So things that we needed for our unit were we needed to get seeds, we needed nutrients, we needed an EC and a pH tester. I ordered all of our nutrients as well as our testers all on Amazon. And then for our seeds, some of the seeds came from our personal gardens, and then some I went and I purchased at a local store. Once we got everything we needed, we started germinating and everything kind of took off from there. What did I do to keep my plants happy? So I would say that I kept my plants happy by providing them with the basic needs of growing, which is sunlight, proper temperature, moisture, air, and nutrients. The lab unit itself, it automatically has the lights turn on and it has the fans that'll cycle through it. And then it also cycles the water underneath. So it keeps the water at room temperature and also keeps those nutrients cycling. So the unit does a portion of it. And then I kept them happy by checking the pH and the EC and adding water when it got low. I work from home and my unit was located at the home office. So I only checked my plants on Tuesdays and Fridays. As they started getting closer to harvesting, I needed to add more water because they were sucking up more water. And I have awesome coworkers that when I wasn't in the office and if my lab unit would start beeping, which meant that the water was low, they went and they took the quick start guide and they were able to figure out how many nutrients to add and filled the tank up until I was able to come into the office. We know as teachers that some things might come up. You might be sick one day or your unit's not in your classroom. So really, you can have your colleagues or your students just listen for that beep. If they hear it, they would just have to check and see which tank is low, figure out how many nutrients to add the water, and that would be able to help you out until you're able to care for your plants again. How did harvest go? Harvesting actually crept up on me very fast because the plants grew so rapidly. After germinating, it was about 3 weeks and I was harvesting lettuce because lettuce grew so quickly. So I actually ended up harvesting my lettuce twice and my kale once. With my lettuce, I of course made a salad with that, a couple different salads with that because there was so much. With kale, I did get a little bit more creative. I made a kicked up kale soup, I made kale chips, and I made a green kale smoothie. Then there was so much left over that I had to give some to my coworkers as well as my friends and family. So if this is something that you are interested in implementing into your classroom, you can have your students grow their own vegetables. And then once it comes to harvest, you can have a harvest celebration where everybody tries the vegetables. Or you can send the vegetables home and have your students try some fun new recipes. You do get quite a lot out of a harvest, so there are endless possibilities of what you can do once you're ready to harvest hydroponically.
Awesome. So that was Emily Winnestorfer, our marketing communications associate. Next, we will hear from Alan, our lead designer, who utilized our Plant Mini educational hydroponic system at his home recently.
Hey, everybody. To answer these few questions that we've set up for this webinar, how did I get started? Getting started with the Mini was pretty straightforward. I was a little intimidated by it, but when we started the seeds themselves, Em and I were in the office. We relied heavily on the quick start guide, and we planted the seeds together. And then she took over the germination process. She had it in a germination tray, most of the seeds, all the seeds, and then we had them placed in the lab unit. And she took on the task of keeping the seeds, wet with a spray bottle. And then once I took on the seeds after they had sprouted, then I did the water, nutrients, and planting them in the mini unit. But using the quick start guide and the curriculum, the support materials, it's pretty straightforward for teachers and students. I wouldn't be intimidated at all by it if I did it again. Real straightforward. What did I do to keep the plants happy? I didn't. I guess I do sing to the plants a little bit, but besides that, just checking the nutrients, the EC and the pH levels, and then making sure the water level is high enough. One weekend I did leave. Kim and I, my wife and I, left for the weekend, and there was a scummy, after the plants had grown up quite high, there was a little scummy line on the inside of the tank. You can see the water level. Well, that scummy line, it looked like the water line, so we left. I thought the tank was full, and when we came back, the unit was, was low on water. But it's fine because the units, they're set up so if the water does drop below a certain level, it does tell you. So keeping enough water in there is straightforward. Just so then it comes down to just checking the nutrients, making sure there's enough nutrients in the water, and then checking those other levels like pH and EC. Lastly, how did the harvest go? Well, I think it's cool. If I would do it again, I would kind of plan out, what do I want to grow? For teachers and students, you might want to come up with a healthy recipe that is kind of laid out as far as what you're growing. What are you going to use these plants for? Knowing what you're growing and knowing what you're going to cook at the end. What we did harvest, what I harvested here, was dill and lemon basil. When I did harvest, like my wife and I, we made pickled beets with the dill, and then with the basil, lemon basil, we made pesto, and then we put that on a pizza. And I don't know if I would recommend lemon basil pesto on a pizza. I don't think I would. It was fine. It wasn't too bad, but I'm used to just regular basil in my pesto. I did have some failures with the oregano, so I transplanted and put in new lettuces and kale. And then my rosemary was lagging behind. I think it's probably ready to harvest now, but I didn't harvest any rosemary either. So all in all, coming up with that menu for teachers and students, and then planting something that you want to eat. First of all, experimenting with growing different things, but coming up with that menu. What are you gonna use this stuff for when it's time to harvest? But all in all, it was a lot of fun.
Wonderful. Okay, well, now that we've heard from Brenda and Alan and Emily about their experiences growing hydroponically and some of the things that they've learned, we're going to turn things back over to Jamie, who, again, as a former teacher, really is dedicated to finding out how teachers are using these tools in their classrooms and what information and resources do they need to teach to improve the way that they're teaching. So we asked Jamie a couple of questions about using hydroponics to teach. Specifically, we asked him, how can teachers get their students involved with these systems? How can teachers turn mistakes or unexpected issues into learning opportunities? And we also asked him how teachers can incorporate the lesson plans and activities from our curriculum into their existing programming to really make the most of their systems. And here is what Jamie told us.
This is a great point in time to start talking about, different ways to use hydroponics in the classroom. You have some plants that have been harvested. You have some plants that are still in the kind of middle of the road stage. And so, the first thing about this is a great place to get these units seeable. Make sure that students can see them. Get them out in the hallway, plug them in there, have them on tables where students can see. It will draw them in and get that interest point. That's going to be important for students to kind of understand what's going on. That's where a lot of questions will come in. This is that great time to start asking a lot of questions to your students. Really dig into, okay, did this go well? What were the problems? What were the issues? Get them start thinking and reflecting. Reflecting is always important and always good to say, what can I do better next time? Also ask, what were your successes? What were the things that you did really well that next time you're going to emulate and that you want to do more of? The other piece of this is, and you can see, is there's different types of plants growing here. We have different plants growing in each of the different systems. That's a great place to say, okay, now that it's growing, would you change them out? Do you want to do something different? As we grow the plants, we want to grow their minds too. Get them thinking about other things that they could do. Hey, this didn't work well. I want to try a different vegetable or a different type of maybe growing. Maybe I want to, do a carrot and have it grow down. And what does that do versus growing up above the water? So there's a lot of different things you can start looking at, but now's the time, as they see it, as they have started that growing, to really start to engage and get them thinking about what's next. How do I now grow something new? This is the place where, as you have it here, we're always talking about hands-on learning. This is that place for you to start saying, yeah, what are some other things that you can do in that way? So one of the things with these systems that we have really worked on and engineered for is trying to get it user-friendly for everyone. No matter if you've never used it before yourself, if you've never done hydroponics, or you have hydroponics already in your greenhouse, in your classroom, this is a user-friendly, all of our systems are user-friendly. What that means is we want you to be successful in growing different things that you grow. So with very little interaction, making sure the water levels are good, making sure the nutrients are right. Besides that, the systems really work on their own. They have times that they can do it themselves. They have the ability to do that on their own. So with these systems, it's very easy to be able to do the work yourself and have your students help you. One of the great things about this is if you're not the best at this, that doesn't matter, because part of failure is part of the learning process. Have students try and say, oh, that didn't work. Now let's go figure out why it didn't work. Now, the other great thing is let your students be as much as the teacher as you are. And what I mean by that is sometimes it's better to say, students, you go figure this out rather than putting it on yourself. We have the guides. We have the ability for students to be able to find and chart what type of plants do we use, when we should be putting nutrients in, how much, all those things are there for you. Now, the great thing about all of our hydroponic systems is that curriculum comes with it. And when we say curriculum comes with it, it's not just PowerPoint slides and worksheets and activities. It is also our instructor guides. It's our quick start guides. It's our charts that tell you what are the different types of plants to grow, how long you should be, looking before harvest, how long to germinate. We give a ton of information for students to really kind of look and say, hey, how many days do I want to be growing this before I harvest it? You can look and say and chart out and say, hey, we need 45 days, we need 60 days, we need 90 days. And you can start looking at different types of plants that you would then want to grow in that sense. And we have charts to show you what are some of the easier plants to grow. If you're, first time trying, use our curriculum to teach you and your students how not to kill the plants. That could be a great success for you. For some of you who said, okay, now we're on to the next thing. Hey, what are the different difficulty types of plants that we want to try? Let's challenge our students to see if they grow or if they don't grow. And you try some more difficult plants that are going to take longer time or a little bit more finicky in their growing process. And so with our curriculum, you're able to then actually go back and look at the logs that you've done. And what would you change? What would you do differently? How much nutrients you would provide? How much, water and sunlight? And then start doing some experiments with those. You can use that curriculum to say, okay, here's what the textbook says. Do we change it? Do we switch it up? What happens when you get more light or more wind or more nutrients? What happens when you get less? And start doing some experiments with that as well, which our curriculum helps you really to understand what the standards are, how to help you grow, but then also you can kind of go off path and do some.
Okay, awesome. Last but not least, we have some additional teaching tips from Brenda. Not only was Brenda excited to share a little bit about her overall experience with you guys, but she really learned a few tips and tricks and things that she would do differently the next time that she was anxious to share. So she sent us one final video showcasing some of the things that she would tell others who are contemplating hydroponics in their classroom. Here is what Brenda had to say about teaching tips.
Hi, this is Brenda Collins again from Wheatmore Middle School in Trinity, North Carolina, and I wanted to give you my top 3 tips that I would use or that I wish I had known ahead of time by using this hydroponics set. First of all, you'll notice that it looks a little bit more empty than it did. We've eaten our lettuce. The kids have had a lot of fun. And probably my first tip is to make sure you're planning ahead. I've already got some little lettuce seedlings there and some more started down here, which will become our next batch of lettuce. Now we have about a month of school left. And if I turn the grow speed on too fast, they will grow plenty fast to give them another batch of lettuce. So my first hint, my first tip would be that plan ahead so that you always have something that you're putting back into your unit after you've pulled something out of the unit. The second tip is sort of planning ahead. I did not do that, and you can see my tomato in particular here is reaching the top. This unit is made so that there is a larger opening on the bottom. And had I done this again, I would have started the tomatoes down there where they would have a little bit more room to grow. However, at this point, the roots are so thick and the roots are so dense that I could not easily put it down. So I've just let them grow up there. And they're doing fine, but planning to put the larger items down here on the bottom would work better with this additional space that you have here. And you can tell with my basil here, unfortunately, you're dealing with seeds that grow at different speeds. So sometimes your planting, as much as you try, doesn't work real well. These tomatoes obviously still have some ways to go before they're going to be ripe, but this basil has these absolutely giant leaves on it, and you can see how big that leaf is there. And the basil usually either ends up coming home with me, or sometimes a student will take it home and use it for something. The third tip I would do is let students grow as much as you can. And I try to do a variety of different things. Most of my students have not, like I said, come from a farm background. Some of them have never even had a garden. Some of them have never eaten fresh produce. So I try to let them do as much as they can. There are some limitations, obviously. This is middle school, so some of my kids are more mature than others. Some of them can handle some of this caregiving. Some of them cannot. I introduce them to different pieces of equipment like our pH meter. I introduce them to how do we monitor and change the pH and the electric conductivity of the nutrient mix the water that we're putting in. I let them fill up the water. And obviously we get to do some of the harvesting of the products. So planning ahead, making sure that you're using your space and your settings to its maximum capacity, and changing the grow setting is very, very simple. All you have to do is push grow setting and it'll change. And right now I have it on a slow growth, just because, well, now it's on a fast growth, just because I wanted my lettuce to slow down a little bit. But you can see with my planning, with my space for my tomatoes, they probably would have done better on the bottom of the unit. So use your capacity, or use the capacity of the unit. Keep things moving in and out. This is getting toward the end of the year, so I'm not putting as much in. Probably the biggest issue I've had with this, and I've cleaned it out one time, is the cleaning part. It tends to accumulate a lot of algae. It tends to clog up. You do have to monitor, in particular, the areas where the tubes are. Let's see if I can show you this. Sometimes the plant roots will start growing down and you just have to kind of pull them out. That was by far the most difficult thing, was taking this all apart, scrubbing it apart, and then putting it back together properly. I messed up on one thing. I just need to flip a couple of panels. But for the most part, it just took time and it just took energy, which we all know that for teachers is not always something that we have in a lot of abundance. So I hope these helped. Just 3 tips that I have, and I've greatly enjoyed this unit and plan to for the next year. Thanks.
Okay, wonderful. Well, that concludes the presentation for today. That we've heard from Jamie and Brenda and Alan and Emily regarding growing with hydroponics in classrooms and out. And we just wanted to conclude today with some free resources. We want to make sure that you guys have what you need to get started, to get more information, to have a resource and reference for those tips and tricks that were shared today. So I'm excited to showcase our implementation page with you. That is a resource on our website where you will find posters and blogs and guides and some free downloads. So we are actually going to hop onto the website right now. I'm just going to minimize my PowerPoint here. And let's see, we'll go right to realityworks.com, our website. And if you hover over from our homepage, if you hover over products, and then on the left-hand side underneath agriculture, you can pop on down to hydroponics here. If you click once, you'll get to a landing page that showcases all of the 3 systems that we offer for using hydroponics in the classroom, but it's this orange button that I'd like to call your attention to. If you click on Hydroponics Education Implementation, you will get to our implementation page, and this is where we store all of our resources for getting started and making the most of your systems. This guide right here, Hydroponics Know How to Grow, is an awesome resource for an overview of how to start using these systems in your classroom, what you'll need, how they work, as well as a free poster you can print and use to jumpstart really great conversations with your students about the impact hydroponics makes on the world, both from a sustainable point of view, farm to table, things like that. So really fun topics to talk about. Next, we offer an educational hydroponic systems overview right here. And this is really a great piece of information if you're interested in using some of those systems that Jamie reviewed earlier in the presentation in your own classroom. So this will tell you what you need specifically as it relates to our systems to get started, how they work, the resources you get with those systems. Then if you scroll down, you can get some additional information about our products, but also you'll find a free daily, weekly hydroponics educational systems chart. We actually made this growth chart after Emily and Alan's first harvest. Using some of the feedback that they learned, they realized the importance of tracking the weekly pH and EC ranges as well as nutrients. This free chart is really an awesome tool to use with your students if you're going to put them in charge of your systems for a day or a week or however long, so that they can get used to tracking and charting and measuring. And they have that consistent place to record that information. So hop on our implementation page to access that chart as you're getting started. And I think that'll make some of that hands-on learning experiences for your students just a little easier. And if you scroll down to the bottom of the page as well, you'll find you can access free infographics on topics including hydroponics. We have some blogs, customer stories, even a curriculum sample and a curriculum overview of the lesson plans and student activities that come with our systems, as well as a really cute video from, this is one of our subject matter experts here at Realityworks, Dave, who really was part of the development team for hydroponics, and he has some great tips as far as what to grow and how to get started. So that concludes today's presentation. We really appreciate you spending time with us today and taking the time to learn more about hydroponics in general, as well as our systems. We hope today's presentation was useful. Thanks so much and have a great rest of your afternoon.